Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 37th episode of Tides of Lore. My name is Robert Silva. I'm one half of your host team, joined as always by my good friend Tim. How we doing this week, Tim?
Doing great. Reconsidering whether I like the game or not. I tried to do some mythics with the homies. Ask me in what time did we finish a +2? Go ahead, ask me.
How long did it take you to finish a +2 mythic key? What dungeon?
I don't even know. I don't even remember. The Rookery was one, and the Mother Load was the first one. It probably took an hour and some change for the Mother Load. Oh my gosh, dude. It is... we have a new tank who's using a 1-button rotation who's never played WoW before. And then we have a lot of other people who just never done mythics or high level content. Not that a 2 is high level content. But yeah, so I'm doing that. I'm teaching people how to do it. And it took us 4 hours to do 2 dungeons. I'm getting back into Pokemon, man. I'm about to send some cards off to PSA for the first time. Some of my heavy hitters like the Poncho Pikachu. And I'm really excited, man. I've never done anything like this. Kind of scared. Hopefully it doesn't get lost in the mail, but we're getting insurance and everything, so. But yeah,
They
bro.
send you back at 3 grading?
No. Unless it gets water damage on the way. We do PSA. Come on. We do PSA.
I don't know the difference, to be honest. All I know is card ratings usually are 1 through 10.
It seems to be more popular. So they retain value better. Unless it's a black label Beckett, then it might sell better.
This
But
man
yeah,
is
bro.
speaking a different fucking language to me right now.
Dude, I'm back into Pokemon. I'm playing the Scarlet 2 on the Switch 2. Ooh, it's so fun. It sucked on the Switch 1, bro. It was like a flip book. You played in like 10 FPS. It was terrible. But Switch 2 actually pretty good. Pretty good
Surprising,
performance.
Switch 2 components aren't that much better, but
Well, whatever they're doing,
That is good to hear.
it feels like a different game.
it's good to hear. I haven't played a Pokemon game. I don't remember what the last one that I even really played was. Was it? It was the re-releases for Sapphire and Ruby. But outside of that, that is the last one that I played before Diamond and Pearl.
Yeah, you kind of a casual when it comes to Pokemon, but that's okay.
Hey man, I loved it as a child. I don't need to maintain my fandom over it. It is just will always have a place in my heart. I just stopped having the brain capacity for most of it. It all went to World of Warcraft. I picked up Hearthstone at some point, and it was all downhill though for Pokemon.
See, I play Pokemon in my downtime and for my queues, right? In WoW,
Mhm.
right? I'm waiting in WoW. Okay, I'll play a little bit of Switch, play some Pokemon while I wait.
Yeah, I remember when I was doing my time walking grind trying to get the Time Reaver. I had this. It's basically like an organization game where you like build factories and you have to like create special shapes. It's literally called shapes, and that's what I would play in my downtime while waiting for queues.
Yeah, you gotta do something, bro.
I need to pick up Minesweeper. The people that play that, they're locked in.
I don't know what that is.
There's no fucking way. All right. But that is what's going on with us this week. I mean, I guess for me, just to really quickly go over it, I ain't do too much. I moped over the fact that I did not get Vengeance. I tried running Sanctum a few more times, but it left just a nasty taste in my mouth. And not to mention the first day that the bounty ended, I went and ran Sanctum and there were no drops. It was literally bugged and there was nothing dropping. I was like, this game's the worst. I hate it.
They wanted you to take a break, bro. It was a sign. You did it
I
too
know.
much. Go
Yeah.
outside.
But what about the mount, Tim? Anyway, I did that. I ended up leveling both my priest to max level, and I ended up leveling my death knight to max level, which gave me the achievement where I now have all classes at max level.
Yeah.
Out of all 20 of my max level classes, I got all 13 of them.
I don't have a priest.
Yep, it was the last one I needed to do, and I mean, Holy Priest is obviously great for healing, but outside of that, it's just not that fun of a class. I mean, you have some damage buttons, but it's like Holy Fire and Smite, and that's it. So I'm just standing there, keeping people basically max health with one spell because they're that good of healers, but then you just Smite. It's like playing Classic.
I was going to say, this sounds exactly
Yeah.
like Classic. They're really going back to their roots.
But yeah, so I got all those. That was a pretty big achievement for me. Ended up doing one of the Undermine reps and getting the Paragon box mount from that, which was great. Loved getting that. That was the first try. A little bit of luck there after vengeance. But yeah, I think that event's going to end when the actual 11.2 Ghost of Koresh stuff drops next week. Not this upcoming week. I think this is like a pre-patch week if I remember correctly. So when that buff actually ends, then I will probably stop doing those Undermine reps as well. Oh, I do need to do the one you ended up doing. What was that? The Dark Fuse.
Oh, dude,
Gotta go dig trash.
There was an exploit, so I was doing that, and I got halfway
What?
with the exploit. Yeah, there was a world quest that it didn't progress if you were in a raid group, so you could just summon endless amounts of enemies, and I thought it was slow with that, but then they fixed that exploit, and I had to do it through doing the scrap, and no, that is slow.
Yeah, I'm already pretty close, but it would still take me like 1,800 market research or something shit like that. A lot. It would take me a lot.
Well, you need 4,200 right now.
Yeah. I'm already pretty far ahead because I have been doing it since Undermine released, but
make sure you turn it in before the event ends, even if you don't have the full amount.
Yeah. But yeah, got mounts, got achievements. That was great. Now I'm kind of in limbo. I know I need to grind that other Undermine rep, and I know that I need to get on top of actually grinding the Warglaives, because I do actually have 3 characters that have a Warglaive. I just need to get that, and I got like 20 resets or some shit like that until then. 15, I don't know. A lot of weeks. November. But that's what's been going on with us this last week, and in the podcast last week, we discussed kind of the first major conflict that we're getting into during the Cataclysm event, and that was the Forsaken fighting against the Worgen and the Gilneans. What do you remember about what we discussed last week, Tim?
I remember Sylvanas being back. You know, she did a flip, as you like to call it, off of Ice Crown onto some Serenite, and well, that didn't do it. So she's back. She's raising people from the dead. She saw an opportunity when the Cataclysm started to go and invade Gilneas. So she did, and she was kind of working them a little bit, all right? Until she wasn't, and they got Crowley the goat back at it. Eventually, Gen's son dies too, which is, you know, big dub. Hopefully it changes his perspective a little bit.
I will say Gen's son was like significantly cooler of a person than Gen was. So
I mean, it would have been a bigger dub if it was just Gen himself. Yeah, it sucks that it was his kid, but hopefully this makes him turn into the leader we need, or I guess Gilneas needs. Ooh, there was those guys who never liked Gen, and who were those 2 guys who was like shooting people? Oh,
Lord Godfrey and Baron Ashbury.
Yeah, Godfrey and Ashbury. They got killed and then resurrected, and now they are trying to kill some Worgen with Sylvanas. And
I guess I will say that at first they take Gen captive, trying to hold him ransom to gain some sort of control over Gilneas from the Forsaken as a bargaining chip. Before Godfrey at least does a flip.
He makes sense, dude. I would have tried to sell him too. I don't think it's that bad of an idea, honestly. They're trying to free their people.
I mean, we are talking about a guy that has abandoned his people on numerous.
So getting rid of him and then liberating the people sounds like a win-win.
Yeah, that's if you trust the Forsaken, which who trusts the Forsaken?
Yeah, you're right. They always do what's in their best interest.
But yeah, they do get resurrected, and they end up working with Sylvanas during this war for Silverpine between the Gilneans that are eventually joined by the 7th Legion of the Alliance after Gen goes to Stormwind to plead with them and gain their support in this battle against the Forsaken. And then they show up, and it's this big battle for a while where eventually Lorna Crowley gets kidnapped by the resurrected Godfrey and is held at ransom, demanding that Darius Crowley stands down and basically flees Gilneas. And he does, and it pisses off a bunch of people, but Sylvanas actually does free his daughter, and they go running off together before Sylvanas is then also shot in the back by Lord Godfrey, who, oh man, he loves his guns. He loves shooting them.
I don't think there's a race that loves guns more than the Gilneans.
Oh, you don't.
Are they the Americans, Azeroth?
No, they're like the Europeans for sure.
Okay.
Because they're like all Victorian in style. I mean,
but
I would say that the gnomes love guns more.
In this, yeah.
You seen Mekator suit, bro? That thing's.
They like tech. I wouldn't say. And guns maybe can be fair, tech,
yeah. But yeah, Sylvanas dies again. The Lord Godfrey goes running off to be the last boss in Shadowfang Keep, and Sylvanas is then resurrected by 3 more of her Valkyr, where she goes to Undercity to plan the next steps. Sure, the Gilneans have basically been forced to retreat, and she has too, and yeah, that is most of what went on during this first major conflict, where it's kind of in this limbo now, where the Gilneans don't really have the ability to take over, and the Forsaken don't really have the ability to take over, and it's just kind of this soft war, I guess, if you will, between the two. But also last week, we did have a few comments from y'all, so we're going to cover those really quickly before we hop into today's episode. Starting with Chris TV 6VV saying, "Thank you for these amazing podcasts. I am listening while walking to lose some weight. Time goes so fast then, and it's an awesome combination. The Dementious part put a smile on my face now that I listen about 1 week away from 11.2. Anyways, keep up a good work." And just for context, this is back when we discussed the Outland stuff and how eventually we're going to get the whole Dementious storyline with the Ethereals. So it's a little bit of a comment on an older video, but I did really like this one because, I mean, 11.2, at least, like I said, I think the pre-patch is tomorrow, right, Tim?
Yeah, the 5th, and I think you can do the story content. I could be wrong, but I think you can.
I think you're right. So, yeah, I did want to highlight this one because we're right there, and I thought it was kind of almost a full circle moment getting to see this comment pop up last week just as we were about to actually move into it. So I am excited for that. Really looking forward to seeing some of the stuff that they got for this. I just hope that it's cooler than Undermine. Like, Undermine was really cool in a lot of ways. And after we talk about the goblins today, I think it'll be perceived as even cooler. But it's just like all of the gear looked exactly the same and didn't really feel like it had any life to it. I will say that the gauntlets that my demon hunter has, the shark fist bombs, those are fucking cool. But for the most part, most of the gear, it's just like, it's got saw blades and sharp pointy bits and badly painted metal. And you're like, cool.
Did you see the two-handed mace that's like a goblin head?
Yeah,
that thing's pretty cool. I got that the other day and I was like, ooh, I might have to make a transmog around this.
See, there are definitely some wins, and I really love some of the more comedic stuff that the goblin stuff does bring in. But when we get to Koresh, I'm really hoping for some cool looking stuff, some stuff that takes me back to some of the TBC, Netherstorm kind of transmogs, but obviously way flashier these days. I'm wanting some more lightsabers, some more cool shit like that. Come on now, let me see it.
Yeah, those are cool from Azevesh. Those lightsabers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I want all. I mean, when we hit Shadowlands, I was like, I'm bored of like the techie looking stuff. But we've had a bit of a breather period. We got a lot of, elemental looking stuff with Dragonflight and so on. And then you have all of the War Within that has a lot of, dwarvish looking stuff as well as the goblin stuff that we talked about. So I'm ready for some more high techie, high fantasy blend, I think.
I like the new trench coats. They did the BFA ones and then the Dark Views one, and I enjoy them. I do.
Yeah, did you figure out your transmog for those yet?
I sent it for.
I thought,
Bub really liked it.
We're seeing it. Let me see here. Let me see. Oh yeah, the goggles kind of make you look like Robotnik, but it does look good.
Well, those are just sunglasses.
I know. But anyway, that was. Thank you so much for that comment, Chris. And moving on, we did also have Huel Morris over on Spotify saying, "Recently stumbled onto you on YouTube. Such a nice, fresh take on the lore. I've been out of WoW for 5+ years, but your detailed and fun explanations of the lore are giving me the bug again. The reason I loved WoW so much was for the lore and PvE rating side of it starting at vanilla and so forth. Thank you." No, thank you, citizen. But yeah, I mean, I think doing this and talking about the lore and creating this community to discuss the lore with is really what has helped to keep me so invested in WoW too. Because, I mean, we mentioned it, I think, even just last week, where it was like there would usually be these downtime periods between patches and stuff where Tim and I didn't play. And I mean, we still occasionally go to play other stuff, like Tim kind of mentioned. He's going through a bit of a Pokemon episode right now. But being able to do this with you guys has really given me so much more joy in doing basically everything that we do in World of Warcraft, even just playing the game that I already enjoyed playing.
It made me excited for actual patch content, like learning about Dementius.
And I think that is like the biggest benefit to knowing the lore, is that like when they announce something that's coming next, you're like, oh, this ties into that thing that we did X expansions ago or last patch or something like that, instead of just being like, Void Lords,
go kill them. Yeah.
Ethereals, you remember them? They're back. So I'm excited to see what we get into. We did also have Karma Lover 0102 saying, currently listening to you while at work. Your podcast is what helps me get through the day sane. You're my favorite content for lore, so I'm stoked to listen today. Good work as always, gentlemen. Smiley face.
Wow. Very kind.
I know. Very high praise today. You guys have... Oh my God, you're making me blush with all these comments. But yeah, no, it really is awesome to see your guys' support over these last few days. We've been getting a ton of comments and stuff like that have been so supportive. Almost so supportive. I'm like, are you people real?
AI.
Are you AI created to stroke my ego? Yeah. But I'm just going to roll with the fact that you guys are awesome. And thank you so much for your amazing comments. But that is all that we have from last week. And now it is time to hop into this week, where we're going to talk about goblins. So let's just hop into that. Before we dive into today's story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to Tides of Lore on YouTube, or if you're on Spotify, leave us a 5-star rating. It really helps the channel, ensures you won't miss a moment of this adventure. Now let's get started. Starting with the last time that we ended up discussing goblins, we spoke about them just before the events of Classic, where they ended up breaking free from their enslavement by the Zandalari trolls on their volcanic island of Kezan. By basically, they were mining this ore called dynamite that would eventually, like, they would inhale the fumes from it. It would make them super smart and give them basically like ingenuity in terms of creating like inventions and weapons and stuff like that. So they overthrow their oppressors using this newfound intelligence, and with that, they do what goblins eventually do best. They turn on each other, and with no more common enemy, they have these rivalries that just flare up amongst each other, and this new infighting begins, and it eventually spawns what are known as the Goblin Cartels, that are essentially just sub-factions of the overall goblin people. And after no clear victor emerges from just this constant fighting with each other, they do broker this uneasy truce with each other, though it doesn't really protect anything, as you'll see, because this truce still exists, but goblins like actively do the worst shit possible to each other still.
Wait, so goblins weren't always smart?
Goblins were not always smart. It's theorized that they came from this other race called pygmies before they were like mining the rocks, and then eventually when they mined the rocks, like they stopped being, because they looked like just like really short humans, and they had like beards and stuff like normal humans do, and then they mined this rock and they turned all green, got pointy ears and crazy appearances.
So they were gnomes?
Kind of. I wouldn't say that they're gnomes because they were like dumb, but almost primitive.
And then they did some drugs and they got smart. And
that's the lesson, kids.
You don't have to do those drugs if you're born from someone who already did them. Like, it just made their people smart.
Kinda. As you might have noticed in the Undermine, we drink a lot of something that's called Kaja Cola.
Okay, so it's in that too.
Yeah, the kids are down with the sauce still today. But yes, when this peace is brokered, it changes from this open battlefield with each other to almost strictly economic warfare, but more like if the mob was running economic warfare, where it's like these trade wars and people being shook down for protection money and stuff like that. And their little island of Kezan becomes this crucible of capitalism. And they go on to create nearly unparalleled technological devices. Like we said, the only ones I really think could compete are the gnomes themselves, who have a bit more of a taste for the safety features, unlike the goblins do. And they quickly build Kezan into this nearly modern, kind of 1940s-esque capital island of, like I said, pretty much all the goblin stuff. If you don't play World of Warcraft and you don't know, they are so mobster-esque. It is hilarious. And just in general, I think goblins in WoW are my favorite version of goblins that exist in any media.
I like their bodyguards that they were using in Undermine too. Those dopey looking,
The big. But yes, as years pass and Kezan's Kajamite veins begin to run dry, this precious mineral dwindling, the goblins' enhanced brilliance begin to dull, and their grand designs grow erratic. Their once unmatched ingenuity falters, and realizing that they can no longer rely on invention alone, the cartels double down on trade and begin expanding all across Azeroth, turning Kezan into this sprawling, smoke-choked metropolis of commerce and exploitation. And basically, they're like, well, we don't really need to worry about protecting ourselves if we just pay people to protect us. And having mercenaries just becomes commonplace, like Tim just mentioned, for goblins to spread their influence and do what they intend. And that's where we come face to face with quite possibly the most goblin that has ever goblin, who will eventually go on to be what is known as the trade prince of the goblins, essentially the leader of all these sub-factions. And I feel bad saying it, because for the longest time I was like, Gallywix is a joke character. He's never done anything like really interesting. I read through this short story that he has here, and I was like, oh my god, is Gallywix actually a badass sometimes? This is crazy. This is like Scarface.
Yeah, I remember a little bit they were building him up in Undermine, but he was a mobster?
Oh, kind of. So, I mean, this whole short story, it starts off as basically an autobiography of Gallywix writing to the player, breaking through the fourth wall. And he's like, hey, this is basically your secret to getting rich, but also if you didn't pay for this book, then I'm suing you and I'm going to have my people break your knees. Which is hilarious, again, because this short story is free. It's available on Blizzard's website. You don't buy this. So he threatens to send assassins at you if you don't pay up, or you'll be perishing. And eventually he does get to the actual meat of the story, where he discusses his rising to power and wealth. And he does also dive in briefly. He's like, yeah, I know I have a controversial reputation. You know, some rumors that perhaps I enslaved my own people and price gouged a disaster, and I betrayed basically my entire race, all for currency. And he's like, and you know what? I would do it again, all over. I'm not gonna lie about something I'm proud of, is his exact words. So yeah, that really sets the standard for who Gallywix is as a person. And he reveals, like, the purpose of this book is that I want to give you the 3 secrets to success. And I hope that you don't look at the other 200 pages of the books, because they are literally just all old newspaper and jerky recipes for Murloc soup. And he says, but you've already paid and there's a no refund policy, so I owe you nothing. But that is where we get to the actual first bit of lessons from Gallywix, where he does end up giving you his first lesson, basically being boom or bust. And he discusses his childhood, where he's like, even as a child, I understood the volatility of goblin ambition. Like, my father, from a young age, was desperate to get us out of poverty, but all he could do was invent shitty weapons that just blew up our house constantly. The goblin stuff is so unserious, and it almost feels weird talking about this being going on at the same time as, like, the undead Gilnean War, where they're using, like, bioweapons and resurrecting zombies of loved ones that they... Bro.
No one... Well, that's part of the thing. I can't take goblins serious because... nothing about them is serious.
I love that, though. I love that WoW has such range on being able to be, you know, this high fantasy war between ancient demons and elves and whatnot, and can also be this mobster-style, capitalistic goblin mob movie.
You're not wrong.
I'll get you one that can do both. But yes, Gallywix eventually snaps at his father, basically just being like, I forgot this happened. He literally snaps at his father. He's like, you're a bad father. Do you have any idea how embarrassing it is to me that you tell me to go outside and play when there's no one to play with, because Jimmy's mom forces him to pour concrete as soon as the sun comes up, and Sarah's mom forces her to lay bricks at 8 a.m. every morning? Do you know how bad it is that I have to beg my own father to force me to work? So I guess his dad is, in a way, a bad father, at least in terms of goblin.
I mean,
the goblin
you put him
ecosystem.
In almost slavery at young. I mean, you got to make the money.
Except not his father. And he's like, why won't you do me? Come on. I thought we were supposed to be family. And he's just like, I don't know what to tell you, kiddo. I love you too much.
I yearn to work.
Yeah, I yearn for the mines. I yearn to build more explosives. But yes, he calls him out for his father's inaction and his idleness, calling it basically a shame upon him and his own family. And his father is just like, hey, whatever. It'll be okay. I promise you'll live. Anyway, it's your birthday, so I just barely got you this cookie from this bakery that literally burned down like 8 years ago, but made the best cookies, allegedly. And Gallywix mentions, he's like, oh, damn, I only get one of these per like every year. It's only on my birthday. And he's like, oh, hell yeah. He's like, anyway, I'll eat that later. They do reveal that the Sugar Pack Bakery was destroyed during the first war, the first trade war, and then bombed heavily during the fifth trade war, and then completely melted down during the peace war. So
the peace war.
The peace war. So that gives you an idea of what the history of the goblins has looked like since being freed. Oh, fuck, I love these guys.
Do we learn more about the
I need to make
war?
a goblin. I don't think so. I think I looked it up. They literally are just like, it's just mentioned in this story. I'm like, I need this. Yeah. I need this. But yes, as soon as Gallywix sets out, he goes to eventually leave he grows so disillusioned with his father that eventually he's like, I'm just going to run away and I'm going to go be a pirate like my mother. And eventually his father is like messing with this experiment. And just as Gallywix and him kind of have this last little sparring moment, Gallywix goes to leave with his stuff. And then the local mobster, Skezo, comes in. And he's like, hey, where's my extortion money? And he's like, hey, I can't afford the extortion money right now. I can barely afford money for materials. And he's like, that's crazy. I didn't ask. So the extortion begins to escalate. And then during this threatening, Skezo ends up taking the one thing that Gallywix had truly wanted during this day before leaving, which was that goddamn birthday cookie. And as his pop pleads, Skezo begins to mock him and eats the cookie right in front of him. And Gallywix mentions how he notices it and he's not even savoring each of the crumbs that fall to the floor. And eventually he spots Gallywix. And then as he is going to leave, he spits out the cookie onto the floor, dropping the rest of it and leaving Gallywix in this seething, stunned silence as his father tries to speak these words of assurance to him, but all he can hear is the sound of the blood pounding in his ears. And he basically says, this is the moment where I gained my goblin identity. And that it wasn't just a stolen cookie, it wasn't food, it was the dignity, the childhood, it was the last line. And from there, Gallywix thinks, I could have just left Kezan there, but no, something sparked in me, something hardened, and he decides in that moment that he will never again be powerless. So eventually Gallywix is just like, all right, stay here, Dad. I'm going to go be back. And his dad's like, actually, I'm going to go get you another one of those cookies. I don't know where he's getting these cookies, but he's like, I'm going to go get another one of those cookies. And he's like, the sentiment is good, Dad, but you're missing the point. We're just going to get robbed again. So Gallywix goes to meet up with this loan shark, one that actually works for Skezo. And he's like, hey, loan shark, I need money to pay off my father's debts. And the goblin's just like, you want to pay our boss with our loan with interest? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, oh, okay, well, alrighty, here's the money. So as Skezo goes to return to his father's workshop, eventually there, standing in front of him, is Gallywix, holding this big bag of money. And he goes to hand it over to Skezo, and Skezo says, is it all there? And he says, with interest. And he laughs, taking the bag, throwing it over his shoulder. And he's like, damn, this shit's heavy as hell. I didn't realize. Here, lackey, carry this for me. This thing's so heavy. And he's like, yeah, that's probably the dynamite at the bottom. Dynamite? And then he's like, yeah. And as he says that and he gets that moment of realization, boom, Skezo and all of his goonies explode into a million pieces, along with all of the money in the bag, as it says that it rains down in flames upon this part of his neighborhood. Yeah.
I bet goblins hate that, dude. Seeing money on fire. The worst nightmare.
Well, actually, as soon as Skezo is gone, the streets erupt in celebration, and goblins pour out of every alleyway to begin scavenging every flaming dollar that they can find, cheering for Gallywix all the way, as he makes his way over to one of the local people, or one of the people in his neighborhood, a goblin by the name of Bezok, who is a brickmaker, and he's like, hey, I want you to know I didn't kill him because this isn't about just like freedom. This is about opportunity. And I want you to know this power vacuum, it's not going to last. All these new gangs are going to come in, and I got a proposition to make sure that doesn't happen. You're going to do your work, and I'm going to run your business. And the guy's like, well, I mean, okay, that sounds good, but like if I join up, I can just leave anyway, right? Like, you're just going to handle the boring stuff? And he's like, sure, yep. And as he begins to protest, being like, what do you mean? Sure, Gallywix just says, boom. And at the sound of the word, Bezok jumps. And he begins to realize just how much control he has over the people with just his words alone. As Bezok caves in and is just like, all right, you run the business. And with this proposal, he then takes the same one over to his father, basically being like, you're going to run the shop, I'm going to run the neighborhood. And he begins to build up his own little empire, having his father legally sign over their business to him. Thinking, well, he even says, like, well, I'll give it to you for a week, and if we're not profitable by then, like, I'm going to cut you. And he's like, all right, cool. And then it, like, time skips to the next week, and by the next week, he's running the entire neighborhood.
How old is he?
10 years old.
Small loan of $1 million, dude.
But yes, he spends the week writing, negotiating, and expanding, ignoring his stale birthday cookie beside him as it's supposed to symbolize the moment that his childhood ended. And he says that he even still keeps it to this day when the story occurs, which would be the Cataclysm. And it's said that by age 10, he earns his first $1 million. They call them macaroons, but they're dollars. We're just going to call them that. And he says, while others caught diseases swimming through toxic waste, he was flipping contracts and consolidating power. And in the end of this first little talking point, he explains his motivation clearly, that ownership, whether it's cookies or contracts or legacy, it must be protected, that he always will take care of what is his. And it actually gives us probably the only sign that Gallywix has a heart at all, because it mentions how he ended up giving my pop all of these things with all the money that I made. And he's like, normally that would be kind of taboo for a goblin, but I need people to know that I take care of what is mine. And he sees his father as included in that, which, again, not really common for goblins, at least like that.
What's his father's name?
I don't think he has a name.
What?
Dad, Pop.
His dad doesn't have a name?
Well, they discuss it from his point of view. Like, the story's from his point of view, and he only calls him Pop. So that's when Gallywix then gets into Secret 2 of his book, laying down the universal truth for goblins that luck is a lie, that everything is earned and taken and comes from bold action, ruthless leverage, and aggressive expansion. He says, don't waste time detailing every hostile takeover or scorched earth acquisition. You just need to do what it takes to win. And he basically outlines a world where there are only two kinds of people, predator and prey. And you don't get second chances, you don't get gratitude. You only get what you're willing to grab. But following the Second War, with the Alliance and the Horde coming to an end, where all the orcs would eventually get put into these internment camps, you might remember that the goblins, at least some of them, ended up partnering with the Horde to make them ships and stuff like that. The person who is like right above Gallywix at this point in time, who is known as the Trade Prince, like we mentioned, Maldi, he had that deal with the Horde to make them ships and stuff like that. So he was super rich. But now, Gallywix is a growing juggernaut on Kezan, becoming the president of his conglomerate of Copper Street and becoming a rising figure in the Tinkers Union, only second to the Trade Prince himself, as he begins gaining more and more support from all of the people from different members of the Bilgewater Cartel that he is part of. And a lot of these members begin to realize that Gallywix isn't just competition for the Bilgewater, he is the future of it. And they all begin to back him in this hostile takeover of the Bilgewater Cartel to overthrow Maldi. Maldi? Maldi. I'm calling it Maldi. Maldi.
Malding.
Malding. But yes, for 6 months, he coordinates these backroom deals and pays off different rivals and secures secret support so that by the time that the day of Maldi's daughter's birthday arrives, he is prepared for his hostile takeover. And as Gallywix enters the party like a conquering king, the crowd cheers, goblins scramble to impress him, and not a single guard blinks as he makes his way in. He's already turned the mansion itself inside out with his influence, and the drinks begin to flow, and the backroom alliances begin to glimmer from every corner as Gallywix stays focused on his goal for the night. He's not here for the flattery or the finger food. He's here to finish the plan that will make him the trade prince. And as he's making his way over, he loses the plot. I'm not going to lie. He loses the plot. He looks over and he sees the birthday girl, the one that had initially been part of his plan to kidnap, to get at Maldi, his daughter Nessa. And as he does see her, everything changes. He says that she's radiant with the greenest skin that he's ever seen. And Gallywix's ruthlessness begins to crumble. And he begins to sink into the weight of her beauty and be overwhelmed by something he's never encountered before. He's simping.
Wait, for his daughter?
For Maldi's daughter.
Oh, gotcha.
Bilgewater Cartel. So he says that she has a magnetic attraction to him. As he approaches, he impulsively asks her to dance, abandoning Plan A entirely. She accepts as they go to the dance floor, and he basically begins dancing with her. And he's like, dang, I don't want to say anything that will make me look stupid. And the first thing that comes out of his mouth, marry me. And Nessa laughs at him. She's clearly charmed, but she's still just like, I don't know. I don't even know you. And he goes to tell her, and she quotes all of his titles back word for word. And he goes, she read my press release. And Gallywix feels flattered himself. And for a brief moment, he does not feel like this mogul, but he's just a goblin trying to impress a woman who sees right through him. And Nessa ends up telling him that she's not looking for somebody who's lucky. She wants somebody who is ruthless. And Gallywix is startled. He's like, what do you mean? I'm ruthless. Like, let me bring up some of my darkest accomplishments. That time I extorted the orphanage, when I burned down that hospital, all those back alley burials that we have here. Here's a map of all where the bodies are hidden. And he says all this to impress her, and she listens, and she hears him, but she is unmoved. And then she shrugs and she says, well, that's a good start, I guess. And it cuts Gallywix to his core. He realizes to win her, he'll have to go even further, even more ruthless than he already is. And that's when the realization takes over that, hey, when I overthrow her father right here in front of her, she's going to go crazy for me.
Let's be a war criminal. Yeah. I think that's what she's looking for.
Yeah. She needs you to starve POWs. Come on now. But yes, now smitten and emboldened, Gallywix now embraces what he's calling Plan B. Not a backup, but the ultimate power play that will win him power and Nessa. If she wants ruthlessness, she is going to have it, and he's going to serve it with fireworks. And just as his delusion begins to peak, a cane wraps around his shoulder, and he turns around to find the trade prince Maldi himself, smiling thinly beneath a mountain of rings and suspicion. And Gallywix is just like, it is time. And as they initially, kindly interact with each other, the trade prince goes to correct Gallywix's tone, and eventually Maldi's like, are you enjoying the party? And he's like, oh, did no one tell you? This isn't her party anymore. This is my party now. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, oh, yeah, this is everything that you own. I bought a majority stake in it. You're done. You're out. I'm giving you 10 whole minutes to get off this island before I have you put on a stick outside. And as all of these big guards begin to make their way to remove Maldi himself, Gallywix is like, no, this is going to be the cherry on top. And he says, all right, guys, hold on. Stop for a second. And Maldi tries to save face. He's like, I still control a fleet of ships that are going to go sell weapons to the Alliance. And with all that money, I'll just rebuild and recover, and I'm coming back for you. And he's like, Gallywix is like, oh, yeah? That's crazy, because I have this large red button here. Maldi, I want you to press the red button. And Maldi's like, I'm not pressing the button. He's like, oh, what are you afraid? Goblins shouldn't be afraid. Press the button. Or are you not really trade prince material? So Maldi presses the button, And all of those ships that he was just talking about are out in the harbor. And they, in alphabetical order, it says. I don't even know what that means, but hell yeah. As all of them go up in flames.
Was there like explosives?
Oh yeah, he had already had them all set up with explosives. And as the smoke begins to fill the air, Gallywix snatches this sword that was hidden inside of Maldy's cane that he obviously had already been told about by one of his connections. And he tells Maldy, he's like, yeah, you got 1 hour to leave Kezan. And Gallywix turns back to Nessa, expecting to find happiness. And when he looks into her eyes, he sees, well, horror, right? Like, he finds that his absolute ruthlessness is not in fact admired. It is in fact revolted. And in this thirst to impress her, he crossed a line, and Nessa storms forward, slapping Gallywix across the face before silently leading her father away from the ruins of his empire, as the crowd erupts into celebration for their new trade prince, Gallywix.
This is what she wanted. What?
Apparently there's a hard red line between the orphan extortion and taking over your father's company.
Well, I guess
in a hostile takeover.
It means less money for her when he dies or something. I don't know.
Thank you for tuning into Tides of Lore. If you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your fellow adventurers. Your support makes all the difference. Thank you. But yes, after that, years have passed, and you get the final chapter of Gallywix's book where he says, I've only grown richer and bolder and more unrepentant. And he opens up Secret 3 with this mocking reflection that he has none. He has no regrets of anything that he's ever done in his life. Any of his accidental deaths, of anything like that, any of the power that he took, he would do it all over again. And he even mentions how he's like, and Nessa, you know, she in her own way has kind of come to love me. Every time it's her birthday, I end up sending her a gift, and in return, she sends me a unmarked box of explosives. So who's to say that long-distance relationships don't work?
I need to get me one of those.
And he points out, he's like, in case you miss the point, you want to rule, what you need to do is win. You need to take what is yours, burn bridges, and never stop grabbing more. He warns you to not believe that you can be like him, that unless you're willing to cheat everyone and everything, that you will not succeed, that the goblin race does not need ethics, it needs a winner. And if you can't win, then you need to get out of the way for somebody who can, preferably himself. And with one final grift, there is a footnote in this short story that just details all the words in this like legal retaliatory like jargon, basically saying that if you try to do anything, that he will sue you into oblivion and you will stop existing. And it's just a really fun little short story. If you haven't read it, The Trade Prince Secrets by Gallywix, short story, it's a lot of fun. But that is where we move away from Gallywix himself, and we, as the player characters, come into the story. Because, well, we're Goblin just like the rest of them, am I right?
No, I don't play Goblin.
Come on.
I do not.
Actually,
maybe on a rogue I've made one, but that's...
I would do a rogue too. I actually don't have one. I think I have like basically every horde race except for Goblin. I think I have basically every alliance race except for humans.
Volpera.
I actually have a Volpera shaman.
Oh my...
Yeah.
I think less of you.
Sorry. I'll never get back this accolade. But yes, that is where we as the player characters come into the story as you wake up a goblin of the city of Kezan. And you're initially tasked with going to your foreman, who is losing his mind over these defiant troll workers, which, I'll be honest, I didn't remember this part of the story, but it's kind of crazy because the goblins stopped being slaves, and now when you play a goblin character, you got troll slaves. So I guess that's just how the coin flips.
I mean, trolls get the worst of it all, man.
Yeah, that is true. But with these workers slowing down, it's jeopardizing the production of the Kaja Cola, like we mentioned, that everyone's favorite way to consume some Kaja.
What would happen if a human drinks some Kaja Cola? What would happen?
It's a really good question. Or a gnome.
Yeah.
Become omnipotent. But yeah, so you are then handed this motivational gift, which is literally a bomb to go take to your foreman, and you do, and it blows up, and he's like, all right, I get what she's trying to say. So you help your company by killing off these giant tunnel worms that are chewing through the Kajamite itself. And you end up taking a taser to all of the workforce that is not working as hard as you deem them should be. And with all of that, you end up heading over to Sassy Handwrench, who is stressing over this party that they're about to throw in your honor, because they're like, we really need that Kajacola for your surprise party. And you're like, my surprise party? And she's like, shit. But it's basically you're having a party thrown in your honor for hitting a marketing milestone for your company. Way to go, champ. You're really killing it. And with that, you're tasked with hopping in your hot rod and going to pick up all your friends as you cruise around the streets of Kezan. And you do what any good goblin does. It doesn't run on goodwill. You pay a personal visit to the slums of Drudgetown to collect a few debts. You go to the First Bank of Kezan to take out a massive withdrawal so that you can go buy yourself some new shades and bling and a fresh new outfit for your party.
Do you go break some kneecaps?
Oh yeah, that was the debtors for sure. I'll be honest, I don't think they were paying up. I'm pretty sure you left them on the floor not moving anymore. But the last most important thing that you need to do as a rising mob boss is you have this foot bomb match coming up. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It is a football game where you then go and you attend, and eventually they're like, we're taking you off the bench, champ. You need to go in there and win the game. And as you go, you manage to, I think, kick the winning field goal or some shit like that. And as you do, your bomb flies, and as you see it fly overhead, something else flies overhead. And it's this massive black dragon that has burning wings as it flies overhead. And it says, the sun has set on this mortal world, fools. Make peace with your end, for the hour of twilight falls. As Deathwing the Destroyer flies over Kezan, and this massive volcano that makes up a majority of the island begins to explode with lava. But hey, you won the game. You're a hero.
Wait, is Undermine mentioned? Or does any of this happen in Undermine?
It doesn't happen in Undermine, but Undermine is technically underneath the volcano.
Okay. It's interesting.
Of Kezan Island itself.
So,
yeah.
When we go there from Kazilgar, is it...
Yeah, the Ringing Deeps.
Is that...
Same place?
Interesting. Okay.
Because we've heard about it since this. Like, since the starting area. We just barely got it in War Within. I'll be honest, it doesn't make a lot of sense, because if you see where Kezan is on a map...
That was my question, yeah.
Kazilgar is on a map.
Yeah.
That bitch is way far away.
Yeah, that was...
But hey, I guess if the Nerubian empires could be connected, why not the Goblin?
True. Maybe there's some just...
Why not stop Goblin?
Train that takes you, or drill or something.
Actually, it is a drill now that I think about it. Remember, it's like a rocket.
Yeah.
So you go to inform Sassy of what just happened, that you won in foot bomb, and she's like, yeah, that's great and all. That volcano is erupting. I'm getting off the island. And you're like, I don't know what she's so worried about. Anyway, you go throw your cool shades on, your hip new outfit, your shiny bling, and you go to your party, and you throw it back. You're having such a good time. All your party goers are having such a good time. It is just the best. And then the music cuts, and a bunch of these South Sea pirates arrive. They storm your party, weapons drawn, as they go to crash all that is joyous in your life. And that's when Sassy notices Gallywix slip upstairs, and she thinks, suspicious timing. So you're sent to go confront him on the balcony above all the chaos, and he mentions, oh yeah, this party, not just an ambush. This is actually a power play. I think you've been getting a little bit too strong. But the world's ending. This island's gonna go completely to shit, but with a small donation to my cause of a bazillion, literally it says a bazillion macaroons, dollars, I can get you on the last yacht out of this island. So you're like, oh, fuck, all right, Gallywix, I'll see what I can scrape up. So you're then sent on this quest to go into the Kajamine and extract the last deposits of it from this volcano to make as much money as possible before you leave. And you then hop in your hot rod and you go run over a bunch of looting goblins to steal their loot to make more money. When we mentioned the best starting zones, I should have mentioned the goblin one, because this is so fucking good, bro. This is so out there.
Yeah, it was pretty good. It was tropical. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. And then you're like, wait, my money. So you go to the First Bank of Kezan and you're like, I need my money. And you find its door shuts and all accounts are frozen. And you're like, good fucking luck, buddy. So you break in to the bank and you steal all of your delicious money back. Of course, it was yours to begin with. But You're like, I know who I could steal from that would make me even more money. And you see Gallywix's, and you're like, there it is. So you go to steal these priceless art and antiquities from Gallywix's vault by avoiding his guards, and eventually you get out of there. You're like, all right, we need a little bit more money. And Sassy's like, I have the plan. What if we file an insurance claim on our company headquarters and then we blow it up? And you're like, that's genius, Sassy. All right. So you go and you sabotage the generator in your building and your stove, and you then trigger this gas bot to go inside, and it explodes and blows up your building, and this fraud is pulled off perfectly as it goes up in flames. It has got to be such a money sink to be a insurance company
with the goblins
in Kezan. Yeah.
I'm surprised they even allow insurance anymore.
But yes, with your bazillion macaroons in hand, you rush over to the dock and you give it to Gallywix, and he praises you for your hustle, and he's like, good news, you'll be on the ship. Bad news, you're kind of going to join what I'm going to call indentured servitude. So get in this cage with the rest of the goblins, because I'm going to go sell you. Wait, what?
You spend
Gallywix, you wouldn't do this.
The most credits you've seen in your life, and then you just to get into slavery. I mean, I guess, is it better than being dead? It's for you to decide.
But yes, as Gallywix's yacht begins to sail for Kalimdor, the player character shackled below the deck with the rest of Kezan's unlucky survivors, kind of runs out for Gallywix himself too, because there's this Alliance war fleet that is currently attacking a single horde ship off in the distance, and you find yourself, well, caught up in the crossfire, as this Alliance is basically like, no witnesses, they open fire on your yacht as well. And with this, you begin to sink, but thankfully are freed by the accident before you are dumped into the sea. Or eventually, you wake up on the jungle-covered shores of a location known as the Lost Isles. You do a head count, you begin rescuing any of your scattered companions, and this is where I think the Goblin starting quest goes from being like crazy interesting cool to just being like a generic starting quest zone. But we're still going to talk about it. Because after you scare off some of these hostile monkeys and do all this stuff, you find that you are not alone, and you find the survivors of that horde ship that was known as Draka's Fury. And you find out that none other than this ship belonged to one Agra, who is the mate of one Thrall, former war chief. Cool guy. And yeah, you go up, you talk to the surviving orcs led by this shaman Agra, and she mentions how they were ambushed out at sea. And I was actually kind of concerned, because when we talked about the Shattering novel, at the end of it, they discuss this ship, how Thrall's in Ratchet, and they're given the ship to go and sail off towards the Maelstrom, and that's what he's doing out here. And at first I was like, dang, I should have mentioned the ship. It might be important later. I guess not, because literally the next time that you see it, it's sunk. But yes, so Thrall and Agra on the way to the Maelstrom, ambushed by these Alliance, and now you are uniting with them. And Agra mentioned, she's like, yeah, we got some precious cargo, quotations, over on that Alliance fleet. So I need you to commandeer some of those Nomus aircrafts and go and collect that cargo. And you're like, cool, I'm level 3, I can do that. So you hop on this aircraft, you go and you fly over, and you rescue this precious cargo, which is obviously revealed to be none other than Thrall himself. And as you guys make your way out together, eventually Thrall calls upon the elements, destroying all of these Alliance vessels and scattering the enemy as he rejoins the goblins, who have decided to relocate further inland to regroup. And back on land, the goblins have set up this new home using what is called a town in a box. This is quite possibly the most crazy invention I've ever seen. I mean, I think this does go to prove that the goblins really are quite ingenious, because apparently these things can just you could just put a box down and then just press a lever and it literally spawns an entire town. Not like a small town, like an entire fucking town.
Didn't you do this in WoD? Well, we summoned goblins. I don't know if they did it in a box, but they might have.
That might have. I know that. So later on in the Cataclysm, the Twilight Highlands, they have the Horde location that has the airships that fly in and out. Mm-hmm. Apparently that was an accidentally deployed town in a box, really? And that's why it's on that little cliff. So that was a funny little thing I learned. But yes, this magnificent invention aids you guys in taking up your next steps as this true alliance between you and these members of the Horde begins to take place. And after assisting the fellow goblins that you have around you, eventually you're confronted with the fact that, hey, over in those ruins, the Voshaline ruins, apparently those are some like highborn ruins or something like that, and there's like these water people over there that aren't too pleased with us being here. And obviously it's the Naga, and they're like, we hate goblins, die. And you're like, all right, fine, we'll fight. So as you go and you tear down their banners and plant Bilgewater flags, because that'll show them who's boss, and you slay a few Naga along the way while sending this message, you then set up an irresistible pool to lure Naga younglings to the surface, and then you capture them and try and use them as hostages for your negotiation with the Naga.
Yeah, that's ethical.
Ethical. And as you confront the leader of this Naga tribe, unsurprisingly, it turns into a pitched battle. But that is also where you realize the leader of these Naga is a faceless one, which we mentioned are some pretty crazy, powerful, like, rulers of the Black Empire and the Old Gods and stuff like that. But after you defeat this faceless one, it is revealed that he was mind controlling the Naga, and after you do kill this faceless one, the Naga no longer are hostile towards the goblins, which that doesn't make a lot of sense, because I mean, sure, like, maybe they were mind controlled by this faceless one, but like, the Naga are just old god creations too. Like, what do you mean they're just cool with it now?
A weird one.
But returning victorious to the town in the box, you find it under siege from an army of pygmies, which is those people that I was talking about that are basically like theorized to be the ancestors to goblins, what goblins were before they were goblins. And well, your camp is overrun. They're kidnapping and dragging all your goblins away to their little village. And with this, you are then tasked with pursuing the captives and launching this counter-assault, freeing all the goblin prisoners and defeating their chief, Yingwi, where they uncover this grim truth that the pygmies are transforming the goblins into zombies. Again, this shit is just so wacko. I don't understand it, but I'm here for it. Fuck it. Yeah, they're doing these sacrificial rituals atop this volcano, and you confront them and end up stopping this cult ritual and burning the zombified remains of any of your unlucky kin before you are then tasked with making this final effort to stop what these pygmies worship as a god, and you go inside this volcano and face off against what is known as Volcanoth, who is just a giant lava turtle. But hey, he needs to die. So you use this bootzuka and fly around and you light up their god, blowing it into pieces. But after you do go into this volcano and kill it, well, you set off this volcano too. And as Sassy swoops in to save you from this erupting volcano, you fly back to the Horde outpost, finding it under siege by the SI-7 of the Alliance covert operations. And you do some stuff like placing some grenades to blow up some mines. You end up shooting down some gnomish aircrafts using some goblin aircraft. And eventually, with the battle all over, Thrall reveals the truth to you that while you were fighting for your life, Trade Prince Gallywix recaptured the remaining goblin survivors and has sent them to a prison industrial facility known as the Gallywix labor mine. You then find this orc as the player who gives you a giant jungle beast to transport you all the way to the labor mine, where you end up freeing this person known as Assistant Greeley, who seems to be basically lobotomized and under the influence of something. And you're like, well, I know it'll make you feel good. How about a nice Kaja-Cola? And, well, surprisingly, or I guess unsurprisingly, it works. You give them the Kaja-Cola and they're like, ugh, this is just what I needed. Maybe it's just like Adderall. Maybe it's just like liquid Adderall.
It could be. I mean, I don't know if they have an FDA or what, but
You think the goblins have an FDA?
might be right.
But yes, you take out one of the labor mines leaders, Blast Shadow the Brute Master, and with these brutes defeated, you hop into this minecart down this racing track that ends at the docks, where you will then face the final confrontation against Gallywix himself, and you dismantle a bunch of his shredders, these like mechas that the goblins build that have like these saws on them. And with this, you end up also sabotaging one of the nearby oil rigs, slamming a big red button and blowing up a portion of Gallywix's supply chain. And you also encounter one of I think is also one of these really funny quests. Your encounter, if you're a female goblin, you're given this poetic justice against this goblin who cheated on you back when you were working in Kezan, and you end up tracking him down and literally ripping his heart out. And you then go to the slave pits where you'll find the person who was cheating on you with him, and you fuck her up right quick as well.
Rip her heart out or no?
No. I think if you're a male, you rip her heart out, but because it's like vice versa. So if you're a female goblin, then it's the dude. If it's the male goblin, then it's her. But yes, they die. That's what they get for cheating. Don't forget that, kids. If you cheat, you're going to have your heart ripped out.
Indiana Jones style.
Kalima. But yes, with the goblins now freed from his operation and it in shambles, Gallywix prepares for one final stand where Thrall assists you in this final duel against the Trade Prince, and you battle across these ruined docks with explosions crackling all around you, and eventually Gallywix is defeated but not slain, and Thrall makes the second dumbest decision of his life. What the fuck is this writing? This shit doesn't even make sense. But Thrall goes, hey, I know you tried to enslave all your people and that we literally just showed up here and had to physically stop you from doing that. But I need you to go to Orgrimmar, and I need you to bind the Bilgewater Cartel to the Horde. And obviously Gallywix is like, okay, sure. And then Thrall's like, cool. Anyway, gotta get going now. And he disappears. And it literally doesn't make an ounce of fucking sense why Thrall does this.
Because we needed a counterpart to the, what was it, the Worgen?
Gazlo built Orgrimmar.
I see, by letting Gazlo be the leader, I see.
Yeah, well, this shit don't make no sense. Anyway, I'm kind of happy that it does, because he's a pretty funny character and I like having him along for the ride. But if there's anyone that is genuinely, like, truly an evil person for the Horde, and always was, it was Gallywix. But yes, you then escape the Lost Isles and you make your way to Orgrimmar, where you're carrying a message sealed for Garrosh Hellscream himself, and you hand it to one of these dark spears as you arrive on the docks, and he's like, yep, take it over to Garrosh. You make your way into Grommash Hold and you give it to one of his guards, and he's like, oh, it says Thrall called it. And Garrosh is like, okay, let me see the note. And he looks over it and he reads it, and he's kind of shocked for a second, but he's like, well, if that's what Thrall wants, I guess, all right, congratulations, you now serve the Horde. And that's exactly how he says it, and I'm like, that doesn't feel like a good way to say that, but all right. And with that, goblins are now given their first task of going to the lands to the north of Orgrimmar to begin terraforming the land of Ajara and make it what they say is the very image of the Horde itself, and all will know that Kalimdor is theirs. And that's all we got to talk about today. That's where we're going to end today's episode.
Isn't it just a pleasure palace?
I mean, he does reshape it into like being like the Horde symbol and stuff like that too. Oh, and there's the island, the Bilgewater Harbor, and the rocket track line thing.
Yeah, but that doesn't make me think Horde.
Yeah, but like Ajara itself literally gets reformed into the shape. Yeah, that's right. Well, that's what they mean. But yeah. That is where Gallywix will eventually go to become his smug-ass self for most of his life. And eventually build a Mount Rushmore-esque statue of himself.
Yeah, I saw that the other day.
Have you actually been to his little pleasure palace? It's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's chill.
Alrighty. But if you guys did end up making it this far in the episode and you did enjoy yourself, please make sure you drop us a like, a comment, a subscribe. If you're over on Spotify, please drop us 5 stars or a follow. We'd really appreciate it. We love having this conversation about the lore with you guys, so any comments that you got, any questions that you got, we'd be more than happy to discuss with you down below. But that is all that we have for this week, and we will see you next time. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this episode. Your guys' support truly means the world to us. If you're interested in hearing more, we have our full show on YouTube and Spotify, new episodes dropping every Tuesday. I also want to take this moment to give a special thank you to Fantasy Lo-Fi for providing the music for this episode. You can find them on YouTube at Fantasy Lo-Fi or on Spotify under Bits and Hits. Be sure to show them some love, as their music does truly bring this journey to life. Once again, thank you for joining us on Tides of Lore, and we will see you next week.